So we are going to begin with the head, and make sure you place it near the center of your paper so that you can fit that extended arm. Don't place it too far to the left. Well, I will draw a little darker than I normally do so you can see this. And then I'll have to go back and erase stuff. Is that okay? So notice the head is tipped back, so make sure you show enough space between the bottom of the chin and the collarbone, which I kind of didn't. And just so I can sort of make sure I have enough room here, I'm going to draw this little shadow shape and shade it in lightly. I'm not doing the features yet. I'm just sort of blocking in the head. Notice that this side of the neck is just about straight up and down, and the ear is foreshortened. It's tipped away from us like that. And I'm not going to do any more detail on the face until I at least have everything else roughly blocked in. Now, it's a really good idea to think in terms of a plumb line when you're doing a complex drawing like this. So I go from roughly between the ears, straight down, and I'm landing on the weight-bearing foot. That's what I expect. And that's because we use the inner ears to balance, and so I can draw that plumb line in my drawing. And that way I'm sure I'll have enough room for the heel. We're not counting heads on this, but if you wanted to, one head size is about like this. This is the midline through the pubic bone and the greater trochanter. So this should be 4 heads down to here, and this should be another 4 heads down to the ground. He's about 8 heads tall. So we've got 1 head to the bottom of the chin, another head to the nipple line, roughly another head to the navel.
How many heads did you say he was in total?
8.
Including his head?
Yep. So this is a very rough breakdown in heads. So if you can find the middle, that would be useful. Now the thing you're going to have the hardest time with, I predict, is throwing this rib cage so far to the left of the face. See, here's the center of the face, and here's the center of the rib cage. So there's a big movement there that most people are going to have a hard time coping with. Most of the rib cage is off to the left of our center line, way out here. And he's got a pretty massive rib cage, being a god and all. And notice that almost his whole pelvis is to the left of our center line. That's really where the energy of this pose comes in. This is sometimes called the bowl of the pelvis, where we go from the iliac crest down through the bottom of the abdominals and then back up again to the other crest. And notice how far to the left that is. And then I'm going to do the weight-bearing leg first, as I always do. And you can see what we need to do is we need to get from way out here from the edge of the pelvis all the way back to here where the heel is going to be. I ended up adding a little bit to the leg. My leg was a little too short also, so yeah, most of us do. I probably just mismeasured my midline. See, my midline should have been, yeah, a little bit higher, but this works now. And now the non-weight-bearing leg overlaps the weight-bearing leg. And we are cutting back over the center line. It may be helpful for a lot of you to just think in terms of like the bone first. This is the femur. And here's the tibia and fibula. And just draw those angles first. Like that, and then you can build the musculature around that. We're not going into a whole lot of detail yet. We're just sort of blocking it in. And notice that this foot has to end a little bit above where the other heel ended up. So sort of like that. While this foot actually comes down a little bit past the heel. To help find the upper landmarks, I'm going to build a little envelope around this figure, go from the toe to the fingers, and back to the shoulder, which we didn't draw yet. The shoulder's way out here, and then we go sort of out at this angle, down past the midpoint of the body, and then angle back towards that toe. This is really the best way to make sure your limbs are extended properly, is to sort of look for these invisible angles between extremities. So this angle is going to direct me to the rough rough position of that finger. I'm just going to have to come out to here somewhere. And this point is going to help me locate the thumb. Yep. So let me know when everything is sort of blocked in, and then we're going to zoom in and look at the different regions. So how shall we think about this head? It's a very, very difficult angle. So we're going to think about where the eye line is, up near the top third. And then the hairline. And I'm going to start over here with this eye, which is really just like a banana shape. And the eyebrow above it, which almost touches the hairline. And then here's the slope of the nose. And look at how close the tip of the nose comes to this eye shape. It's basically touching it. And on this side, we mainly just see up into the nostril like that. Now, I'm asking myself, how am I going to have room for the mouth? But notice the philtrum is also extremely foreshortened. And so we're seeing up into the upper lip like this. And the lower lip is very foreshortened, goes onto the chin like that. Exactly. Now, the weird thing is that this eye is so foreshortened that it looks closed, but this eye is huge. He actually drew it a little bigger than a natural eye for emphasis, I think. The hair is going to extend beyond the face. And look at how low this jawline comes on this side. It comes way down to here. This was never going to be easy. This pose is really, really challenging.
How did this like come up in somebody's brain? They're like, yeah, I should do this.
Well, if you sound taller, I would have said,
So he saw the green dot.
Well, the one way to make a figure look really huge is to make it clear from the point of view that we're looking up at him.
Then how does he come off so short? Yeah, but you can tell by his figure that he's giving God. He's giving attitude. Oh?
He definitely has a godly attitude.
It's not hair. He looks like he knows what that is. Even though he's oh my god, what did I just do? It was such a wonderful.
Mr. How can you give me like a little PC that's important?
So why would you want to do that?
Mr. Allen, was that a thing for you in middle school? Like, the minute the boys were able to have like peach fuzz, they were just like, man, this is so cool.
I don't remember.
No, nobody cares for that stuff.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Adam.
I mean, that's just silly.
So Adam doesn't care about it, so he doesn't care about it.
I've never met a man constantly talk about the check that oh, he went and checked it really well.
I know someone who talks about getting their picture because they think that it makes them look more defined. Is it? No. Oh, yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna hit him, and he's like, oh, Jesus. Again. Again.
Having a tattoo of Jesus is funny to me because you don't even tell what it's doing.
I don't know. Maybe that was well, it depends on what you're using.
Bro, honestly, having a tattoo.
Yeah, you got a person.
Imagine going to home with a tattoo of Jesus. That would get the shit kicked out of you.
Take the shit out of people.
I hope all these conversations aren't getting picked up by my microphone. But
Imagine if a guy in prison had a tattoo
What is behind
of
his
like,
shoulder?
Blue Lives Matter, tattoo blue, you know? If you get
what, this right here?
Yeah.
That's
His hair, but it's not his hair.
this is a little bit of trapezius muscle. It comes up.
Mr. Allen, I'm telling you, this face is just a movie to me.
It'll be okay.
I don't think so, Mr. Allen.
It's supposed to be hard. This, like I said, this is a hard pose. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the shoulder. Also kind of foreshorten, we're actually, the pectoralis muscle is bulging and kind of overlapping the collarbone here. And this is why we practice drawing eggs a lot, because you can see this, you see how this form is very egg-like, this form is very egg-like. In intro, we shaded eggs for a while.
I remember that. But we had to shade like here.
you know what I think? I think you need to do this.
We had to get shoulders. Yeah.
Mr. Allen, I should probably do like comically large pecs. You know, just for like, I don't know.
No, just do your best to make it look like the original. So here we're going to do a little shadow mapping. So here's what the light is doing. It's cutting across here for the top of the rib cage. And then it's following the forms of these ribs and like that. So we're going to try to map it the same way.
So you don't want us to actually draw that kind of map?
Should we do it again quicker?
That's what I know, but then he like add, like this part is actually shot.
No, go ahead and shadow map it and draw it. And notice, as we've come to expect, the shading gets a little darker as it moves towards the light. And that leaves that nice reflected light in between. Sometimes I dispense with the shadow mapping and just sort of shade as I go, like I'm doing on the arm here. And we're not going to touch anything in the light. This area, we're going to define these forms mainly with white. The only area where I see a little bit of a halftone done with black is right here. I'll just throw that in very lightly. But most of that's going to be with white. It's in so many ways more useful to draw a copy of the work of somebody who really understands anatomy than to try to draw a live figure, because the anatomical forms are so much clearer in a drawing like this than they're ever going to be in a live model. Yeah. So hopefully you're up to this wrist. I always like to sort of define for myself, where does the arm end and the hand begin. I'm making a little boundary there. And then to draw the hand, the first form I'm going to look for is always going to be a kind of a box. So I'm going to zoom in on this hand for a minute. Whoops. And I'm looking for a shape like this, which, as was once described to me, is about the same size and shape as a pack of cigarettes. Now, that's not a form that most of you are familiar with, but it's a little bigger than a deck of cards.
Are you familiar with cigarettes? I would never suspect someone who went to art school.
So, draw the box and then notice that this form of the bottom of the thumb is a very prominent large form that's attached to the front of this box that we drew. And then we can just extend the thumb out from there, like that. And then the fingers come from the end of the box. And there it is. That's the hand. We're going to shade the bottoms of the fingers where they face down.
I'm literally gonna do not change at all. Like, can I do that? Yeah. Whoa.
If you want to leave something for later, like if you didn't get to the hand, you can always take your drawing home and finish it from the video.
Do you think no wall? I feel like that.
So there's some very complex anatomy happening along this edge of the figure. Basically, what we're seeing here, this is called the iliac crest right here. That's the top of the pelvis, and you can even see right here the kind of little bony protrusion of the pelvis. And then attached to the top of that is a muscle called the external oblique, which is very developed in this guy. So it's sticking out past the iliac crest. And then along this edge, we're going to shadow map. Notice how the external oblique actually wraps around behind this contour here. And then over here we've got the gluteal muscles. And some very complex shadow mapping along the top of the thigh into the butt region. So in the same way that it's useful to draw the center line on the face, it's useful to think about the center line through the abdominals, also known as the linea alba. It's that line that divides the abdominal muscles in half down the middle. Literally means white line because in the flayed figure it shows up as white with red on either side of it. So a little anatomy trivia coming up. Here's the inner thigh muscle. Right here, see this division? Goes from the top of the pelvis And it divides these inner thigh muscles from the front ones. You feel that? And this muscle, it goes all the way from here down, it wraps around and attaches at the lower leg, behind the lower leg. It's called sartorius muscle, and it's the longest muscle in the human body.
Remember having to draw that for you? I feel like nobody ever actually draws it for themselves. They just make like a little alien.
They go like this. They go, okay, but like it's like around there. They're like, Aiden.
Do you see that TikTok where he's like,
Like the guy was sculpting and then this is the awkward part. And the guy sculpting goes, and my brother tries schooling her. Please, his mom. No.
my brothers.
Okay, if they're all like, oh, what is this in the letter? And you're like, that's what I was about to say.
Or they're like, you're distracting your brothers. I go, oh, my brothers. Is your Jesus?
What is your Jesus called?
Is it like real Jesus? Who's your Jesus? Is your Alex, who's your Jesus?
I'm recording a video right now, so.
Yeah, get on.
Why are we not, oh, separation of church and state, my bad. Wait, are teachers,
No, not the
I just have a question, are teachers allowed to talk about religion?
They're allowed to talk about it, but they're not allowed to like
That's history.
obviously because that's stuff about it. But they're not allowed to like promote it.
Yeah, we can't proselytize. Although I'm hoping that you all, while drawing this drawing, might think twice about disbelieving in the gods of the Greek pantheon.
I'm gonna sue you. Actually, genuinely, the Greek like gods are the only gods I've ever been like interested in. They are so they're so funny. They're so flawed, it's hilarious.
I will say, when I was a kid, I thought I prayed to the Greek gods.
That makes so much sense.
And because I figured since no one believed him in it anymore, they would listen to me.
Oh my god, that's so precious.
That's actually pretty smart.
What would you pray to them for?
I don't remember what I was praying for, but
That's such a lie, Mr. Alfred. You definitely remember what you were asking for.
no, I don't.
Or else it's like philosophy club
Why are you capping?
conversational work.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Greek god like heaven? What is it, Valhalla? Or is that
No,
That's
that's
that's the underworld of like Vikings.
No, it's not the underworld. That's the good place. That's where people like to go. No, Olympus is just for the gods.
Yeah, but like in like the Greek.
Everyone goes to hell.
People go to Hades.
That's not.
But is Valhalla part of Greek mythology? Or is that
No, Valhalla is like if you. This is for Norse mythology. If you die in like a field of hell, you go there and fight for eternity. It's a lot of fun. Like that.
Remember when we read Soul and
It's so hard.
So this happens to me way too much, but notice that I'm feeling like my feet are like a quarter of an inch too high up in the picture.
I just erased it.
Yeah, so I'm just
Literally just
Just need to extend that a little bit.
I just had to get detail with those poses, you know.
So you see,
Okay, so it's a little disgusting.
Oh, for you? Really? You're up. If you, do you find it disgusting?
Yeah, pretty disgusting.
I am afraid if you find it disgusting.
Well, yes or no, because it goes back to my
video of that guy, like,
So basically, if you have a shower with a grate, you shit in the shower, and then you put the shit on top of the grate, and then you stomp it down like a waffle stomp. Yeah, it's a waffle stomp.
Why wouldn't you just poop in the toilet?
You know, we'll do a lot. I have no clue.
This is like a thing.
Actually, kids at the Boy Scout camp, they like to do that.
yeah.
Please tell me you're lying.
Wait, no.
No, it's true, it's true.
Yeah, listen, I'm recording a video here, so let's, so there's something very subtle going on here that I've mentioned before, but notice everywhere on the legs where you see on one side it's pushing in, you're going to see a subtle protrusion on the opposite side. And that's partly what gives this so much energy, is this sort of very, like this point counterpoint. We've got a little indent here and a bulge here. We got an indent here and a bulge here. Indent here, bulge here. And if you can learn to do that instead of, most people default is to draw legs like this, where you put the indents right across from each other. No, a lot of people do this. And I want you to just notice how much uglier that is.
We've all been there, Mr. Alex.
Yep, thank you, Delaney. So I lowered the 1 foot about 1/4 of an inch. I'm lowering the other one the same amount. Feel free to adjust yours as needed.
She wants to get that second nipple.
the arm and the second, chest.
Nipple?
No, but also like,
I'm really struggling with the toes on the left foot.
oh, I know.
I don't,
You should teach us like in-depth
I
how
just did a prayer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
we're not gonna, I don't care if you do the toes in this drawing, just, yeah.
Sorry, I think as I draw this, I progressively make one side of the body just like beefier than the other.
Are you gonna make the other side bigger?
Well, let's back up and take a look at the overall effect that we're getting.
Sing a song.
And mainly what we have left to do is the other arm. Before we do that, we're just gonna,
I think we start with that like belly button.
the work up from the navel and this interesting series of overlapping contours here of rib cage and deltoid muscle. Notice this nipple's all the way over to the edge. And we're going to go over to this arm now.
Wait. Can we go back to that chest really quick?
Oh, that's so bad. Oh, wait.
Okay. I think I understand. I'll take my kit.
Yeah, I think so, Adam. Yep.
What is the Adam ones right there?
So it's important to understand that what we're seeing here is stylized almost as much as like a Marvel comic. But it's stylized a little more intelligently and more beautifully than most superhero comics are, in my opinion.
We can't see the end of the.
Okay, yep, thank you. So here again, this shading's pretty simple, so I'm just gonna shade shadow map as I shade. And notice I'm kind of using the side of my pencil because I'm trying to get the effect of the charcoal. There's not a lot of clear hatching in this drawing, at least not with the black.
Is his hand bunched up?
No, it's
Oh, he has his finger on him.
Yeah, I'm just using graphite.
My mom went to a boyfriend class for cooking.
This arm is foreshadowing, right?
A little. I'm going to draw the box on this hand now. It's roughly like this. Again, just conceptualize that box form before you try to add on the fingers and the thumb. And then again, I'm going to shadow map as I go on the hand. Shading here, little shading along the side of the box. It's turning away from the light. And a little shading on some of these fingers. Now, before I touch any of this drawing with white, I need to erase my construction lines because I can't clean it up later. Okay, so I don't care if you draw right now. I want you to watch me do some of the highlighting real quick because we're almost out of time. The big lesson here is that the halftones, which are the areas in the white that are not as bright, are going to show up. I think I need a different white pencil. Just a second. Okay, that works much better. So the big idea here is that the halftones, the areas in the light that aren't quite as bright, are all created by putting white on either side of them. So, and it's interesting how in the white we can see his hatching direction very clearly. You see how we're hatching around the peck here. We're really bringing out this pectoralis on this side with white. I'm not going to try to do all the lights. I really just want you to experiment with the potential of using white to bring out form. Not in the shadow side, but just in the light side. And I could do this with a lot more detail, but I'm just giving you a little taste of it today. See, here's the top of that external oblique muscle. There's a little bit of light on these ribs. The bicep on this side is in full light that's reflecting back into the side of the rib cage. And notice that the highlights are rarely right along the edge of the form. They're usually, we're trying to find the brightest lights not along the edge of forms, but on the interior of forms. A lot of beginners will just light up the edges of their forms too much and ignore the brighter lights that are along the interiors. Okay, thanks. Yep, I'm going to create the assignment in just a second. Okay, I'm going to leave this up so you have something to look at while you're finishing, and while you're wrapping this up, I'm going to create the assignment on Canvas. Today is May 3rd, I think, so it'll be called Figure Drawing May 3rd. My drawing's very much a simplification of the original, but hopefully you had a little sense of what you can achieve using white and how quickly you can really bring dimension to your drawing by that technique. Yes, you may.
Mine looks like Peter Pan. Did you say short?
Yeah, I think it's kind of
Thank you.